Today, my name is Stamatios Papadakis. I'm an assistant professor from the University of Crete in Greece, as Vincentas says, from the edge of the world, not in the middle of Europe. And I'm going to present you today an approach how teachers who are not computer science specialists can use this time effectively the AI systems, and more specifically the LLMs, large language models, to produce apps so as to help and facilitate the educational process. My intention was to read all my presentation, but because my colleague Martin was so interactive, I will not use my notes. I'm going to speak to you, and in the time I have available, I'm going to make also the presentation more interactive to you, and I hope more useful. What I mean, I will try to spend the time in presentation only for 20 minutes, and then to spend the rest of the presentation time to make what this presentation asks for. In other words, to create an interactive app since the very beginning, up to finalize it, ready for an educational purpose you might want. So, before to start, just to ask you your profession. Of course, I know you are teachers, but what kind of teachers? You are preschool educators, you are educators on primary education, primary education. Okay. Preschool teachers. Okay. I'm also teaching in the Department of Preschool Education, so my teachers are mostly 99% female students who are going to be also kindergarten teachers, but I also have students from the Department of Primary Education who want to attend my lessons, who are about coding, educational robotics, and the ethical use of generative AI in education. So, if you can see, the title of my presentation is From Consumers to Creators, and how we are using vibe coding as a professional competency for teachers, both for per-service and in-service teachers. And another question before we start. Have you ever heard before the term vibe coding? If not, this is not a problem, because you are going to listen to me more carefully. And secondly, it's also not a problem because it's a very, very new term. First was announced last February, so it's almost 1 year old. But later on I'm going to explain to you in more details. So, what I'm going to speak you or to describe you at the first part of my presentation. First of all, I'm not going to present you a research. We are not going to see results, because I have no results. This is an ongoing process. Of course, I have some preliminary results. I'm going to present you the impressions of this process, but this is not the point of the presentation. What I'm going to speak, on the contrary, is that now teachers are in an urgent need to shift rules from passive consumers of educational software to creators of educational software. This is a radical shift. And we are able to do this if we effectively and ethically use generative AI. Also, I'm going to focus not only on early education, but also what we are talking about is also for secondary education as well, even for higher education as well. And what I want to summarize, or what I want you to remember when I finalize this presentation, that you, as a teachers, even if you are not computer science specialists, you can become software creators. And this is something that happens first time in the history. Because prior to this, the use of generative AI, you have to know computer science knowledge, to know principles of computer science, like sequence, iteration, selections, and a lot of other exotic words, in order to produce a very simple app. Now, you can do the same with a few, not clicks, with a few prompts. Okay, so what my presentation will cover what challenge you as a teachers, not only in Lithuania, but around the globe. Today you are faced when you have to select an educational tool to use with your students. What is vibe coding? How we can use ethically and effectively generative AI to produce apps tailored to our needs. This is what I'm calling a teacher micro-developer framework. And of course, we are going to discuss some ethical implications we have to have on mind, like the EU AI, as we are all in the European Union. Also, we are going to discuss something about bias, hallucinations, gender stereotypes that are reproducing from the AI LLMs. And we must have all these aspects of mind on our final product. Okay, let's go now in more practical examples. Okay, so what we face when we want to teach our students, especially our early years students, preschool and in primary education. We all know that teachers demand for tools that align with a narrow age range. What do we mean for that? We know that young age children or learners have specific needs, cognitive needs, age needs. So we need specific applications which are aligned with their development specific needs and abilities. And when we are talking especially from preschool age students, we also need apps that focus more on visual representation than the text, because preschoolers do not know how to read. They don't know to read. So we need mostly visual representation. Also, what we face in Greece, but also in other small in relative world countries like Lithuania, Latvia, and so on, is that there are no good apps specific for our language. Why? Because for the developers, we are not a market that has meaning to invest. In other words, we are small numbers on consumers. For them, the great thing, the big market is the English language, because there are billions of consumers, possible consumers. So it's very difficult, and this was part of my postdoc, to find, for instance, good apps in small languages. In part of my postdoc, I did exactly this. I analyzed all the apps who run on mobile phones for Android and iOS operating systems in Greek language, to try to identify if they have, in fact, real educational language, real educational value, or they just commercial products. And what I found, unfortunately, and this is the sad result, that almost in 99%, these apps have no real educational value, because they are mostly based on raw explanation of the value in a behavioristic approach, and after 5-10 minutes have no real educational value for the preschoolers or for the early year students. And exactly this need forced me to try to find a solution to educate my students as pre-service teachers, but also in various seminars, webinars, the in-service teachers, to find them, to give them ways to enhance their lessons without depending on these apps. And I suppose, reading international research, the same might happen to Lithuanian context, because the same happens in all educational system around the globe, except Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and of course Chinese, but I don't know Chinese to interpret, because, as I already mentioned, we are small markets for the app developers. So, this is exactly the limitations of commercial software. Unfortunately, commercial platforms rarely or not at all meet specific needs, especially in smaller language contexts with limited localization and, of course, uneven translations. Just for your knowledge, what I mean with this, there are some developers in China. They develop a good app for the English language or even for the Chinese language, because it's a huge market. Then they say, let me use a Google Translate and take the same app and translate it in all over the languages in the world. But this is a mechanical translation, this is not a good translation, and of course does not meet the specific needs of a specific language. And I will not also discuss that some images are not suitable for the specific needs of the specific country, and so on. So, all these are leads in this one, the importance of AI-assisted micro-development. What I mean with this? That we can use AI tools to help us as educators, but we are not computer science educators, or we don't have specific knowledge, what to do to create this time our apps which address our specific classroom needs. Okay, so what can we do now with these apps when we work later on? First of all, what problems we face? As I already told, the digital tools that are available in the market, and some of them we have to pay for them. This is another problem or burden for our schools. Unfortunately, do not fit the specific cultural and curricular context. Secondly, we are not able to customize these tools on our needs. Third, as I already told you, all these developers are using generative AI tools to make specific translations of the language of the context, so they are full of errors, bias, hallucinations, and so on. And, of course, what is the outcome of all this? We are having only low-quality materials. Most of them are unsuitable to use for our classrooms. So, we are now on 2026, almost 2 months, 3 months, new AI tools are producing or enhancing all the time. I don't know if you are aware, but yesterday OpenAI, the company that produced the ChatGPT, announced the new, more powerful version of ChatGPT, even better than before. 1 week before, Anthropic, the company who creates Claude, also announced its own model. Now we are expecting Google to announce again a new model. What I'm meaning for this, that now we have really powerful language models that can enable not programmers to create software by using prompts. In other words, using natural language, speaking to AI using Lithuanian language or Greek language and so on. And this is very easily so as to produce code, but on the other hand, and this is what we must be very carefully, it's not so easy as I presented, because as you can see, it's not just prompting. You must be very careful when you are giving specific prompts, because the AI system is not on your mind. Do not understand what you have on your mind. In AI architecture, we are using the word GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you are giving bad prompts, you are taking bad results. So, we must be very carefully, and this is now the role of the teacher. And of course, what is the impact on teachers? The impact on teachers is very, very important, because now teachers, based on their pedagogical expertise, having the expertise that each day they are on their minds, they are creating learning scenarios. They need the specific needs, they know the specific needs of their students. Now they are able to give specific prompts, just to know the limit and the strength of the system. And of course, we are going to see another role which emerges from by-prompting on teachers' competence that is not described from the various frameworks like DigiCom. I don't know if you are aware of this framework from the European Union. Okay, so first of all, let's describe what is vibe coding. Vibe coding, as I already told, was first time introduced last February. So it's only 1 year old. It was introduced by a developer. His name was Andrei Karpathy. He's not Ukrainian, he's coming from Slovakia, but he's living in Canada. He's very expert in computer science. He worked on OpenAI. As already mentioned, OpenAI is the company who developed ChatGPT. Later on was the manager and director in Tesla. But on his free time, he also working and making research on AI. So he, Andrei, invented this code, this term, vibe coding, wanted to express that users are using vibes to speak with the system to take results. So, exactly if we want to give a term in vibe coding, users specify desired behavior using natural language, Lithuanian language, Greek language, Latvian language, instead of coding directly. So, we are not writing coding at all. We just prompting. And all this action transforming interaction with software. We are taking ready to use software. And of course, this is not one-shot procedure. What I mean with that? You are not going to give a prompt and immediately will take the desired results. But as I already mentioned, this is an iterative development process. You are given a prompt, you evaluate the result. Maybe you don't like it, maybe it is your mistake. I will explain later on this. But this is not a problem. You are giving a better prompt. Again, you evaluate the results. Maybe you don't like it, no problem. You are giving a better prompt. You evaluate the results. Okay, you like it, you use it. So, this is what we are meaning iterative results. And of course, while you are giving the prompt, as already described, you have to give to be very specific on the scope, on the limitations of your prompt, or in other words, what the educational software wants to do for you, for your lesson. And of course, you have also to take in mind the educational value of your software, the risk of your software, and so on. Okay. I already mentioned regarding frameworks. I don't know if you are aware of the existing frameworks. What do I mean with frameworks on AI? There are some rules, some guidelines that guide you on how to ethically use AI, specifically on classroom needs. There are a lot of frameworks around the globe, but as we are in the European Union, the last decade has developed a framework for teachers of all ages. It's called DigiCom. If you are not aware, you should try it because it tries to guide you how to effectively use technology with your students in the classrooms. Now we are in the third version, DigiCom-3. It's very recent. It talks about AI, how to responsibly and ethically use AI, and this is very important for you as a teachers in the European Union because in the European Union, maybe you already know the GDPR. You know the GDPR. Okay. But you know the EU AI Act. This is most important because GDPR is already 10 years old. It's very famous. It has a tremendous effect in the whole world, not only in the European Union. And outside the European Union, all the researchers, they call it Brussels effect because it affects the way we use sensitive data for our students, for the citizens, and so on. But now, on the advent of AI, we have a more strict regulation. It's called EU, European Union, AI Act. This is what you have to take very, very carefully when you are using LLM or, in general, AI systems with your students. And why you must be very careful because, based on the European Commission's rules, everything we have to do with our students, with our teaching, and AI is considered as very high risk. So you must be very, very careful how to handle users' data, what you upload in a system, how you analyze the results of the system, what you are using, for instance, to assess your students based on an AI system, and so on. So all these are considered as frameworks, and they are very useful, but they have one great limitation. All these frameworks are considered as teachers, as a consumers. For instance, I'm using an AI tool, and my only responsibility is how to select it, to read the rules, to read the facts, to read what they are doing, and to consent. But now, using vibe coding, we have an extra responsibility because now we are not the consumers of an AI tools, we are the creators of the tools. So we must be more careful. But okay, this is not so threatening as it listens. We just be very careful only if we upload images of our students, personal details of our students, even grades of our students of primary schools or secondary schools. Otherwise, if we are just using an AI tool we have created just to enhance our lessons, like a simulations or a simple magic card, there is no problem at all. But just you have also to be aware of this aspect. Okay, we already speak about this, that there is a gap in current frameworks, and we must be. Only 5 minutes. Sorry, 5 minutes to finalize everything? Okay. I will be very fast because I think it's more important to see a result. Okay, so what we have to take in mind what I'm calling three-layer structure. First of all, as a teachers, before using an AI tool, we have to think on our mind what we have to do with this specific tool. This is very easily, we are doing it every day on our mind. Secondly, we have to give the prompt. This is what I'm calling prompt architecture, because it's not a simple prompt, but we have to give a good prompt. And of course, after we are taking the result, we have to evaluate the output, and in case of necessary, we have to refine our prompt and again until we are taking the final result. And okay, here I'm explaining with more details what I mean with this. You can read it on the paper, and I'm going to speed up the whole process in order to use an example. Here I'm saying exactly what I mean with prompt architecture. We have to give specific goals, specific instructions to generate a AI model in order to understand, and so on. And of course, here is the critical curation. We examine very carefully the output of the system. And if we are not satisfied, no problem, we try again. Okay. And what I want now to do is to play with the system, to try to create an educational software. But we are going to do it not in this way. I'm going first to begin with a bad example. This is because this is what happens to my students in the university lessons. They always begin giving a bad example because they're thinking that the AI system can read their mind. This is, we called it anthropomorphism. They think that the AI system has human behavior and so on, and can understand what they need, but it's not. So we will begin with a bad prompt, a poor prompt, and later on, also based on your feedback, we are going to improve the results. It doesn't matter if we take more minutes. Okay, so yes, I'm going to bring my laptop because I have opened everything. Faster. I'm going also to give you, to present you some of my students' outcomes to the system to see what it's going to produce for us. So, what you can see here, I'm using Gemini. It doesn't matter that I'm using the Pro version. Our university gives it free for all students, teachers, and so on. You can do it exactly the same with the free version. It's working at all. So, I'm using here, and I'm writing here, make an activity about animals for okay. This is a prompt. Very simple prompt, very easily, just write vibes, natural language, and I'm just pressing. The system is working, and I am expecting the results because I want to see how I'm getting the code. I'm getting the code and use it as an app. It's the Pro version. This is the reason it takes a few more seconds than the free version, because the system is reasoning, tries to understand what I need. Okay. I write here, just create for me the HTML code and make no questions, because I want to use to work on this silly prompt. I do not want to refine for it. I told him to give me the HTML code because it's the most easiest format I can take and I can use it almost immediately using my browser. Okay, you see, this is the result. Now we have vibe coding. What I did, I give him a prompt and the system, what created for me? HTML code. Prior to this, you had to be a computer science specialist with a lot of experience in HTML and other exotic technologies like CSS, JavaScript, and so on, in order to create this, because you can see there is a lot of code. Eh? You see, even a small prompt creates all this. Okay, now what I'm going to do, this is also very nice and easy part. I'm going to take the whole code, just copy-paste, and I'm going to make it an HTML page, so as to be able to open it from my laptop, or even if I create a site, I'm going to describe also this process, to have it published and to use it everywhere, also to give it to my students to work on homes, to their parents, and so on. So, the first option is just to copy the code. You see, I will copy the code over here. Copy code. Very easy. Copy code. The second, I'm going to open the notepad. The notepad of Windows. So, I'm writing here, notepad. I suppose you know the notepad. We are using it instead of Word because Word puts some rubbish characters. Here we have the simple code. And I'm going to do copy-paste. Nothing exotic, nothing special, nothing for computer science specialists. So, what I'm having now, I'm having the code copy-pasted to the HTML. Later on, I'm going to save it. So, I'm using the path file, save as, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it, to save it here. And the only tricky thing is that when I'm going to save it, is I'm here as a type, I'm using all files, because you see, in order the system to understand that this is a web page, it must not end with TXT, but with HTML. This is exactly all the pages in the web are working. So, what I'm doing here, I will give a name, super fantastic app, okay, and I'm going to save it as HTML. So, I'm giving a name, and I'm giving then HTML, and save. So, I'm finished. I'm going to find the app. It must be somewhere. Where is the app? I thought it should be saved on desktop. Can you see this?
At the bottom.
Oh, yes, over there. Something. Okay. Okay, let's open with Firefox. Okay, I'm waiting. Oh, this is the reason I don't want to. Okay. With a simple prompt, even a button prompt, the system created this one. Habitat navigators, choose an animal, and I don't know what it's doing. Do you know what it's doing? I don't know. Build the path. It makes a path to help students to try to learn computational thinking skills, sequence, and so on. But what is the problem?
Please say hello to Rebecca.
Hello. The problem is that I didn't want that. I have something else in my mind. But why the system created this path, although very impressive, working and so on? Because I didn't give the system the right prompt. For instance, I would like something different. So, what I have to do now? To give a better prompt. This is the iterative process I described to you. Let's try how much time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, let's try. So, let's try now to give a better app. What I have written here is, for instance, to see the difference, I'm going to give another prompt, like a matching activity for 5-year-old students who connect 6 animal pixels to their habitats with image-based navigation to mediate corrective feedback and not written instructions. You see the difference? Now I'm very, very specific what I want to do. And maybe in another prompt, I can say, give also speaking instructions, because they don't read it, but they can hear. But let's try it just to see the difference, and I'm going to finish.
2 minutes.
Yes, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So, Emma, create.
Be creative.
Create a matching activity for 5-year-old students. Who connects you see more time it takes to write the prompt than generate the results. Okay, I hope I wrote it correctly. So, what I have to do now? Simply press the enter. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting for the results. Just remember that the result is going to be an HTML code. I'm going to copy-paste the code and use it in the same HTML page I have already created. Okay, you see? This is the code, much more bigger than the previous one, because this is logical, because now I'm asking for more specific details. Well, I'm going to copy the code. I'm going to paste it in the previous document. I will erase everything. I'm going to paste everything, and I'm going to save it. File, save. That's all. Now, what I'm going here. What I'm going to do, I'm going in the previous app, which now I have erased it, and I will just refresh my page. This is the new one. But, and what I have to do, if I remember it was a matching, so I have to match the camel to the palm creating. Let's try it. To see if I have the sound, because I was asked for with this. No. Where is it?
The last one.
This one? Okay. But you see, I cannot hear instructions. This is a problem. Because, why is the problem? Although my prompt was clear, the system did not respond 100% correctly. This is exactly the iteration project. As an educator, I have very carefully assessed everything, and if I find that something is not working correctly, I will return back to the prompt and I say, congratulations, you create something good, but I hear no instructions. And because the system is sycophantic,
Because time is over.
yes, but because the system is sycophantic, always wants to be very polite with me. It tells me, oh, my apologies. Yes, I forgot it. Please excuse me. I'm going to create you the new code and so on.
Tomorrow.
No. Tomorrow we have 2 workshops, but unfortunately it's not on whiteboarding. It's about educational robotics and computational thinking with a specific, very good software. But in the next conference, yes, we are going in June, we are going to work on whiteboarding. So, just to summarize, what I want to tell to you, that now you have the ability to work effectively with AI system and not just copy-pasting responses like my students are doing for their exams, for their exercise and so on, but as educators to effectively work with these systems and to create your own apps when needed. Be careful, this is very important. I'm not saying that now you have to start everything to convert it to apps. No, not at all. I'm mentioning that in my paper. What I want to say is, if you are feeling that the educational process would benefit from specific apps, you have the ability to create an app very, very easily, just to enhance your lesson. And just this. Okay, thank you for your attention. Next time I'm going to share more time.